El secretario de Estado de los Estados Unidos, Antony Blinken, nos ha concedido una entrevista el día de hoy en el contexto del último día de la Asamblea General de la OEA, la renuencia de Brasil, México y Argentina a firmar una declaración de apoyo o respaldo a Ucrania ante la invasión rusa, su reunión con el presidente Castillo el día de ayer, qué impresión le dejó, qué acuerdos bilaterales, oficiales o oficiosos se han conseguido entre el Perú y los Estados Unidos. Aquí la entrevista. Estamos en la Bahía de Chorrillos con el secretario de Estado de los Estados Unidos, Antony Blinken, en un hecho pocas veces visto. El segundo funcionario más importante de los Estados Unidos aquí en el muelle de pescadores. Mr. Blinken, thank you for this interview and welcome to Peru.
Great to be with you, especially here.
Yeah, especially here. Peru hosts this year's OAS General Assembly in a region so hard hit economically by the pandemic and with such extreme political polarization. What do you expect of this meeting?
We've already had a very good meeting with the OAS, the Organization of American States. It's the first time that we've come together in person since 2019 because of COVID. And the focus of the meetings that we had was on how we build more inclusive economic growth that brings everyone in, and how we do a better job focusing on equity across the hemisphere. And I think we've heard commitments from countries to do that, to work on that together. And I come away, even with all of the challenges we face as a hemisphere, from climate, from migration, from COVID, from economic disruption, food prices, all of that. The challenges are real, but a determination to work together is also real.
It is not just any political polarization. As a consequence, Latin America now is led by governments such as Petro, Lula, Fernandez, Boric, Maduro, Castillo. Is the U.S. concerned about this so-called pink tide in our region?
I don't see it that way at all. In fact, I just came from Colombia, from Chile, and now here in Peru. We don't look at governments from the perspective of are they from the left, are they from the right, are they from the center? What we're looking at is whether governments are adhering to basic democratic principles, the principles that are in the charter of the OAS and the Inter-American Democratic Charter. That's what counts. And so it doesn't matter what the political orientation is. What matters is adherence to democracy and a commitment to work together, because what we know, what we understand is that none of the problems that our citizens face in the United States, throughout our hemisphere, can be effectively solved by any one of our countries acting alone. We have to find ways to cooperate, to coordinate, and we're doing that. And I found that spirit in Colombia, I found it in Chile, and I found it in Peru.
This is complicated, but Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina are not among the 24 countries in the region that signed a declaration of support for Ukraine over the Russian invasion and rejection of Moscow. Read yesterday during the annual meeting of the OAS in Lima. What is happening in the region for the U.S. government about the invasion of Ukraine?
First, it's important to understand why this matters, because I know for people in our own hemisphere, it seems to be halfway around the world. But it's not just an aggression against Ukraine. It's an aggression against the basic principles of international relations that were established in the United Nations Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and those principles, for example, that countries have the right to maintain their independence, their sovereignty, the integrity of their territory. If those principles are violated with impunity, then that risks opening a Pandora's box everywhere in the world, where big countries will bully small countries, where might makes right, where we have a law of the jungle, not international law that keeps the peace and keeps security. That's why it's important. But here's what's important too. Even as we're standing up against the aggression by Russia, we're also working every single day on issues that also matter here in our hemisphere, on combating climate change, on dealing with food insecurity, on producing economic growth that's more inclusive, on dealing with crime, narco trafficking, all of these things. We can and we have to, as we would say, run and chew gum at the same time. We're doing all of it.
But Peru is also a country facing a political crisis that is shaking President Castillo's government. We know you had meet him. What do you think about him?
I'm not, of course, going to comment on anything concerning politics in any country. I don't do politics in my own country, happily. But I can tell you that I had a very good meeting with President Castillo. I very much appreciated not only the time, but the quality of the conversation. And what we focused on were the issues that are having an impact on the lives both of Peruvians and Americans. For example, Peru has been incredibly generous in hosting so many migrants and refugees from Venezuela because of the crisis there. But it also poses a burden for Peru. I announced a program yesterday working with our U.S. Agency for International Development of about $286 million to help Peru in the work that it's doing to support Venezuelan migrants, including host communities. We talked about the work that we were doing together on climate change. Peru is a leader in combating climate change, but here again, working with the United States, there are programs that we have to help Peru pursue adaptation, to build resilience, to adopt some of the new technologies. We talked about healthcare and the need to have more healthcare for people not just here in Lima, but all around the country. Well, at the Summit of the Americas, this just a couple of months ago, where Peru and President Castillo were very much present, we announced a program to train 500,000 healthcare workers for the hemisphere over the next 5 years. That will extend health services throughout the country and raise the quality of healthcare. These are the kinds of things we talked about.
Now, moving to another topic, please. Since 2012, Peru has expressed its intention to join the OECD. However, Peru is living a paradox. In fact, serious analysts speak of the Peruvian paradox. A surviving economy and 5 presidents in the last 4 years, corruption, a collapsed political system, education without gender equality, and people who do not trust in their public institutions. Does Peru have a chance to join the OECD for you?
Well, of course I believe it does, but it's a process with important criteria to meet. And it takes time, but it's important because it, I think, can support the positive evolution of Peru's economy in ways that are inclusive, that bring everyone in. And some of the work that we're doing together will support that. But, you know, we've seen tremendous progress in our own economic relationship over the last decade. We have a free trade agreement that also upholds the rights of working people and respects the environment. We've seen trade between us go up 140% over the last decade. That's very positive. That creates jobs in both of our countries. We believe that we can grow that. But the challenge of corruption is real. It's a challenge that we see around the world. It's very corrosive to democracy. We're working together on that. For example, helping to train judges, law enforcement, lawyers to deal with that. But throughout, here's the bottom line. All of our democracies, the number one challenge for us is to demonstrate that we can deliver results for our people. And if we're able to do that, whether that's on education, whether that's on healthcare, whether it's dealing with climate, whether it is making sure that rural communities are part of growth, if we succeed in doing that, then I think you'll see support for democracy, for institutions. If we don't succeed, then we've got a bigger problem.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blinken.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. De hecho, nos dieron 8 minutos. No había tiempo para más temas, se nos quedaron un montón de temas, ¿no? El famoso TLC entre el Perú y los Estados Unidos, que nos contara un poco más sobre sus impresiones respecto a su reunión con el presidente Castillo, pero como no solo buen político de larga data del Partido Demócrata, sino como, en este caso también un hombre que debe mantener la diplomacia, prefirió no entrar en asuntos de política interna peruana. Y claro que habían pues temas como la posición de los Estados Unidos frente a los misiles que está lanzando Norcorea al Japón y la situación de Ucrania frente a... ¿Qué está pasando? A ver, no sé, Ucrania frente a Rusia y viceversa, ¿no? Y cuál debería ser la posición de los Estados Unidos. En fin, pero ese ha sido, digamos, el pronunciamiento aquí de Mr. Blinken, Antony Blinken, secretario de Estado de los Estados Unidos.